The starship New Horizon drifted slowly toward the massive structure hanging in space like a crystal moon. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching through the main screen as the council station grew larger with each passing minute. He had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. The station was bigger than any city on Earth, made of what looked like pure diamond that caught and scattered the light from 3 different suns. "First time seeing it never gets old," said Ambassador Lisa Kane as she joined him at the viewing window. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. Before becoming Earth's top diplomat, she had been a military strategist who helped plan the defense of Mars during the robot uprising. Now she carried the hopes of all humanity on her shoulders. "Hard to believe they actually let us in," Jake said, shaking his head. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone in the galaxy, thinking they were the only intelligent life out there. Then the Vorthak had made contact and everything changed. Within weeks, Earth received an invitation to join something called the Galactic Council. 12 species, Lisa said, counting on her fingers. Some of them have been traveling between stars since before humans learned to make fire, and they want us at their table. The communications officer, Lieutenant Ben Carter, looked up from his station. "Incoming message from the station. They're giving us docking instructions." Ben was young but smart, a former emergency room doctor, who had joined the space program when Earth started reaching for the stars. As the New Horizon settled into its assigned berth, Jake could see other ships through the portholes. Some looked like they were grown rather than built, with smooth curves and no visible seams. Others appeared to be made of living metal that shifted and flowed like water. One ship seemed to be made entirely of light, though that had to be impossible. "Welcome, party approaching," announced Pete Rodriguez from the sensor station. Pete had been an engineer on Luna Base before joining this mission. He was the kind of man who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. The airlock opened with a soft hiss and their first alien visitor stepped aboard. Jake had seen pictures of the Vorthak, but meeting one in person was different. The being stood 7 feet tall, with purple skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Its face was almost human, except for the 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and the lack of what humans would call a nose. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the Vorthak said in perfect English, though its voice had a musical quality that made every word sound like part of a song. "I am Elder Zithkar of the Vorthak Harmony. We welcome you to the council station." Lisa stepped forward and offered her hand in the human greeting they had practiced. The elder took it gently with fingers that had too many joints. "Thank you, Elder Zithkar. We are honored to be here." "The honor is ours," the elder replied, and something in its tone made Jake think it really meant that. "Come, let me show you to your quarters. The council meets tomorrow, and there is much you need to know." They followed the elder through corridors that seemed to pulse with their own light. Other beings moved past them, and Jake tried not to stare. He saw creatures that looked like walking trees, others that floated instead of walked, and some that appeared to be made of living crystal. "This is amazing," whispered Dr. Amanda Phillips, the team's expert on alien life. She was trying to record everything with her scanner while looking professional. "Look at the diversity. Evolution took so many different paths." Elder Zithkar led them to a section of the station that had been prepared for humans. The artificial gravity felt like Earth, normal, and the air smelled clean and fresh. "Your quarters," the elder said, gesturing to a row of doors. "But first you must see the council halls." They took what Jake assumed was an elevator, though it moved sideways as much as up and down. When the doors opened, they stepped into a space so vast that Jake felt dizzy. The council halls stretched out before them like a crystal cathedral. 12 raised platforms were arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different species. In the center was a smaller platform with chairs that looked surprisingly human. "The human delegation sits there," Elder Zithkar explained. "And here is something important. Before each major session, you will be invited to rest first in the ceremonial chambers. This is an ancient tradition, and it is your right as humans." Lisa frowned. "Our right? But we're the newest members. Shouldn't the honor go to the senior species?" The elder's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, which Jake had learned meant it was thinking carefully. "It is not about seniority, Ambassador Kane. It is about..." Necessity. I don't understand, Ben said. You will, the elder replied, but would not explain further. Jake looked around at the other platforms. Each one was beautiful and clearly designed for its species. The Xylorian platform seemed to be made of floating crystals that hummed with telepathic energy. The Kroger section looked like a fortress built for war. The quartzite area was all sharp angles and geometric patterns. How long do council sessions usually last? Amanda asked. That depends on the humans, Elder Zithkar said, which made no sense to any of them. What do you mean? Lisa asked. Before your people came, the longest session in council history was 8 hours. Most lasted only 4 or 5. But we have heard stories about humans, stories that say you can work and think and plan for days, without stopping. Is this true? Jake exchanged glances with his team. Well, yeah. I mean, we don't like to, but when we have to stay awake for a long time, we can do it. Coffee helps. All 4 of the elders' eyes widened. Remarkable. Truly remarkable. Why is that important? Pete asked. You will understand tomorrow, the elder said again. For now you should rest. The ceremonial chambers are prepared for you. As they followed the elder deeper into the station, Jake could not shake the feeling that there was something important they were not being told. The way the elder looked at them, the respect in its voice when it talked about humans staying awake, the mysterious right to rest first, none of it made sense. But tomorrow they would take their place in the Galactic Council, representing all of humanity among the stars. Whatever secrets the elder was keeping, Jake hoped they would understand them soon. The future of Earth might depend on it. The ceremonial chambers turned out to be the most comfortable rooms Jake had ever seen. As he settled into bed, he wondered why beings who had traveled the galaxy for millions of years seemed so impressed by humanity's ability to pull an all-nighter. He was about to find out. The first council session began at what humans would call 9 in the morning, though the station used Galactic Standard Time that meant nothing to Jake and his team. The council halls filled with representatives from 12 different worlds, each taking their place on the specially designed platforms. Dr. Ben Carter sat in the observer section, watching everything with the trained eye of someone who had spent years studying how people behaved under stress. What he saw made him increasingly puzzled as the hours passed. The session started with introductions. Each species presented their achievements and contributions to galactic civilization. The Vorthak spoke of their mastery of harmony and music that could heal wounded minds. The Xylorians demonstrated telepathic abilities that let them share thoughts across vast distances. The Kroger Empire showed videos of their massive fleets that kept peace in the Outer Rim territories. When it came time for humanity's presentation, Ambassador Lisa Kane stood up. She was calm and confident as she spoke about Earth's history, their recent achievements in space travel, and their hopes for the future. The other species listened with what seemed like genuine interest and respect. But Ben noticed something odd. After just 2 hours, some of the alien representatives began to shift restlessly on their platforms. The Xylorian delegate, a being called Prime Thought Weaver Zephistal, started rubbing what Ben assumed were its temples. The usually alert Andromedan representative seemed to be having trouble focusing. Are they getting tired already? Ben whispered to Pete Rodriguez, who was sitting next to him. Pete looked around the chamber. Looks like it, but it's only been a couple of hours. The session continued with discussions about trade agreements between different star systems. Lisa participated actively, asking questions and offering suggestions that showed she understood the complex relationships between the various species. Captain Jake Morrison provided military perspective when needed, drawing on his experience, commanding Earth's defense forces. As the 4th hour approached, Ben saw more signs of what he could only call fatigue among the alien delegates. The quartzite representative, normally precise in its geometric thought patterns, began making calculation errors. The tree-like Sylvan delegate actually appeared to be swaying slightly, as if fighting to stay upright. This is weird, Dr. Amanda, Phillips said quietly. She had been taking notes on alien behavior for her research. Look at them. They're acting like medical residents at the end of a 36-hour shift. Ben knew that look well. He had seen it countless times in hospital emergency rooms when doctors and nurses pushed themselves past their limits. But these beings had only been awake and active for 4 hours. For humans, that was nothing. Jake regularly worked 12-hour shifts without breaking a sweat. Lisa had once negotiated for 18 straight hours during the Mars crisis. The breaking point came during a complex discussion about mining rights in the Centauri sector. The debate required careful attention to legal details and economic projections. The human delegation followed every point, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. But the alien representatives were clearly struggling. Zith, quote car, quote SS, usually musical voice became flat and monotone. Zephistol made several telepathic contact attempts that failed, something that should have been impossible for a Xylorian. The Kroger war marshal actually nodded off for a few seconds before jerking awake. Perhaps we should take a break, Lisa suggested, noticing the condition of the other delegates. The relief on every non-human face was immediate and obvious. An excellent suggestion, Zithkar said quickly. We shall reconvene in 4 hours after the rest period. As the chamber emptied, Ben watched the alien delegates practically stumble toward their rest areas. They moved like humans who had been awake for days, not hours. Meanwhile, the human team remained alert and energetic. Did you see that? Amanda asked as they walked back to their quarters. They were exhausted. Actually exhausted. After 4 hours. I've seen humans work longer shifts flipping burgers, Pete said, shaking his head. What's wrong with them? Jake frowned. Maybe nothing's wrong with them. Maybe something's different about us. During the break, Ben decided to do some investigation. He accessed the Council's public records and found historical data about session lengths. What he discovered was shocking. The average Council session lasted only 3.5 hours. The longest recorded session before humanity joined was 7 hours and 42 minutes, and it was considered an endurance marathon that left several delegates hospitalized. This can't be right, Ben said, showing his findings to the others. 3.5 hours, that's barely half a workday. Lisa studied the data. Look at this pattern. Every major decision in Council history was made quickly, often within the first few hours of debate. Complex issues were broken into multiple short sessions spread over weeks or months. But that's so inefficient, Pete said. You lose momentum, forget details, have to restart discussions from the beginning. Unless you can't help it, Amanda said slowly. What if they literally can't stay focused and alert for longer periods? When the session resumed, the human team paid closer attention to the alien delegates' behavior. Sure enough, within 2 hours of the restart, the same pattern emerged. Fatigue, loss of focus, decreased cognitive ability. The beings who had seemed sharp and intelligent at the beginning of the day were now making simple mistakes and struggling to follow basic logic. The session ended after another 3 hours when it became clear that productive discussion was impossible. As the aliens filed out, looking drained and exhausted, Elder Zuthkar approached the human delegation. You show no signs of the weariness that affects us, the elder observed, its 4 eyes studying them carefully. Should we? Lisa asked. Every sapient species we have encountered experiences consciousness fatigue after extended periods of focused thought. It is a universal constant, like gravity or the speed of light. Yet you humans seem immune. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. What exactly is consciousness fatigue? The biological need for regenerative rest that comes to all thinking beings, Zithkar explained. We can maintain peak mental function for only brief periods before we must enter deep rest cycles. This has shaped our civilization for millions of years. Jake looked at his team, then back at the elder. How brief? 4 to 6 hours for most species. The Xylorians can manage 8 hours in extreme circumstances, but it leaves them weakened for days. The elder paused. How long can humans maintain focused consciousness? Lisa thought about her longest planning sessions, the crisis negotiations that had lasted through multiple days and nights. Days if we have to, weeks with proper rest breaks. All 4 of Zithkar's eyes widened in what was clearly amazement. Days? without degradation of mental function? We get tired, Pete said. We might need coffee or energy drinks, but yeah, we can keep going when we need to. The elder stared at them for a long moment. Then it did something that looked like a bow. Truly, the galaxy has waited long for your kind. As they walked back to their quarters, Ben realized they had stumbled onto something huge. If every other intelligent species in the galaxy could only function effectively for a few hours at a time, then humanity's ability to stay awake and alert was not just unusual, it was unprecedented. And based on the way Elder Zithkar had looked at them, it was also incredibly valuable. Ambassador Lisa Kane received the invitation 3 days after the first council session. Prime Thought Weaver Zephys Tal wanted to meet privately in the Xylorian section of the station. Lisa had learned that such invitations were rare and usually meant something important was about to be discussed. The Xylorian quarters were unlike anything on Earth. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light, responding to the telepathic presence of its inhabitants. Zephys Tal waited for her in a chamber that felt more like being inside a gentle storm of colored light than a room. "Please sit," Zephys Tal said, its voice echoing strangely in Lisa's mind rather than her ears. The being looked like a tall, slender human made of translucent blue crystal, with energy patterns flowing beneath its surface like slow lightning. Lisa settled into a chair that seemed to form itself from the floor. "Thank you for inviting me. I hope I'm not breaking any protocols." "There are no protocols for this conversation," Zephys Tal replied, "because this conversation has never been necessary before." The energy patterns under its skin shifted to deeper blues and purples. "Tell me, Ambassador Kane, what do you know of consciousness fatigue?" "Only what Elder Zithkar mentioned. That all thinking species need rest after a few hours of focused mental activity." Zephys Tal nodded, a gesture it had learned from studying humans. "For my people, consciousness is like a flame. It burns bright, but it consumes itself in the burning. After 4 hours of peak mental function, a Xylorian must enter what you might call a meditative state. Our thoughts slow, our telepathic abilities fade, and we become unable to process complex information." "But you recover with rest?" "Yes, but it takes time. A 4-hour thinking period requires 2 hours of rest to restore full function. This is why council sessions are so brief, why major decisions take months to finalize, why our civilization moves slowly despite our advanced technology." Lisa thought about the human brain, about all-night study sessions in college, about the crisis planning sessions that lasted for days during the Mars emergency. "And this affects every species?" "Every species we have encountered in 10,000 years of galactic travel," Zephys Tal confirmed. "The Vorthak lasts 6 hours but need 8 hours of harmony meditation to recover. The Kroger can push themselves to 7 hours in combat situations, but it leaves them mentally exhausted for days. The Andromedans are precise but can only maintain logic processing for 3 hours before their calculations become unreliable." "What about humans?" The energy patterns in Zephys Tal's form shifted to bright white, which Lisa had learned indicated intense interest or excitement. "That is what fascinates us. We have monitored your brain activity during the council sessions. Your mental patterns show no degradation even after 8 hours of continuous complex thought. In fact, your performance seems to improve with time, as if your minds become more focused under extended pressure." Lisa felt a chill of understanding. "You're saying we're the only species that can think clearly for extended periods?" "Not just think clearly," Zephys Tal corrected. "You maintain peak performance. Your creativity, logic, pattern recognition, and decision-making abilities remain constant hour after hour. For us, this is like watching someone run a marathon at sprint speed." Meanwhile, in another part of the station, engineer Pete Rodriguez was having his own revelation. The Quartzite Collective had given him access to their historical archives, something they rarely shared with organic beings. Pete was fascinated by their mathematical precision and had asked to study their engineering records. The longest continuous Construction project in our history lasted 6 hours, explained Geometric Prime Null 7, a quartzite that looked like a walking sculpture of black crystal. After that point, our calculations become imprecise, our measurements unreliable. We must rest and recalibrate. Pete looked at the records on the crystal display. Projects that should have taken days were broken into hundreds of short sessions. Simple tasks were stretched over months because the quartzites could only work effectively for a few hours at a time. But humans can work continuously? Null 7 asked. I once worked for 36 hours straight, fixing the life support system on Luna Base, Pete said. It wasn't fun, but I stayed sharp the whole time. Had to, or people would have died. The crystal patterns in Null 7's form shifted rapidly, which Pete had learned was the quartzite equivalent of excitement. 36 hours of precision, technical work, without degradation of ability. Like I said, it wasn't fun, but yeah, I got the job done. Back in the medical bay, Dr. Ben Carter was comparing notes with Dr. Amanda Phillips. They had been studying the physiological data from all the species on the station, trying to understand the biological basis for consciousness fatigue. It's in the brain structure, Amanda said, pointing to holographic displays of alien neural networks. Every species shows the same pattern. Extended mental activity causes a buildup of what we might call cognitive toxins. Their brains literally poison themselves when they think too hard for too long. Ben nodded. And the rest periods flush these toxins out, reset the neural pathways. It's like their brains have a built-in safety mechanism to prevent overheating. But human brains don't work that way, Amanda continued. We have different waste management systems, different neural architectures. What causes cognitive fatigue in other species actually seems to stimulate our brains to work harder. Coffee probably helps too, Ben said with a grin. Actually, it might, Amanda said seriously. Caffeine, along with other human stimulants, might be toxic to alien nervous systems. What enhances our performance could kill them. That evening, the human delegation gathered in their quarters to share what they had learned. The picture that emerged was stunning and sobering. We're not just different, Lisa said after hearing all the reports. We're uniquely different. In a galaxy full of intelligent species, we're the only ones who can maintain complex thought for extended periods. Jake looked out the window at the vast station around them. No wonder they respect us. In a universe where everyone needs to nap after a few hours of thinking, the people who can pull all-nighters are incredibly valuable. But it's more than that, Ben added. Think about the implications. Every major crisis in galactic history had to be handled in short bursts. Complex problems were simplified because no one could think about them long enough to find elegant solutions. Pete nodded. Their engineering is amazing, but it's all modular, all broken into pieces, because they can't do the kind of extended design work that human engineers do routinely. And their diplomacy, Lisa said. Quick decisions, simple agreements. They've never been able to negotiate the kind of complex, multi-layered treaties that humans take for granted. Amanda pulled up her biological data. According to this, consciousness fatigue has shaped their entire civilization. Their technology, their politics, their culture. Everything is designed around the fact that thinking beings can only think effectively for a few hours at a time. Except us, Jake said quietly. Except us, Lisa agreed. The question is, what do we do with this knowledge? Outside their window, the station continued its slow rotation, home to 12 species who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. But none of them could do what humans considered normal, stay awake and think clearly when the situation demanded it. As Lisa looked out at the stars, she began to understand why Elder Zuthkar had called their arrival remarkable. In a galaxy that was forced to rest, humanity had arrived to keep the watch. The emergency began at what humans would call 3 a.m, station time. Captain Jake Morrison was awakened by urgent pounding on his door and the sound of alarm sirens echoing through the corridors. Captain, you need to come quickly, said Lieutenant Commander Kelly Brooks, who had arrived on the station 2 days earlier with a supply ship. We have a galaxy-wide crisis. Jake threw on his uniform and rushed to the emergency command center, where he found chaos. Representatives from all 12 species were present, but many looked confused and disoriented from being woken suddenly. The main display showed a tactical map of the galaxy, with red warning indicators flashing in 7 different locations. Elder Zithkar's 4 eyes were wide with stress as it explained the situation. The Devourers have returned. They are attacking 7 star systems simultaneously. Billions of lives are at risk. Jake had read about the Devourers in the Council archives. They were a parasitic species that consumed other life forms, leaving dead worlds behind. The galaxy had fought them before, but never had they coordinated attacks on this scale. "We need immediate response," said War Marshal Thekron of the Kroger Empire, his battle-scarred face grim. "But coordinating 7 simultaneous defensive operations?" He shook his massive head. "It has never been attempted." Ambassador Lisa. Kane studied the tactical display. "What's the problem? You have fleets in all those sectors." "Coordination," explained Prime Thoughtweaver Zephistol, its crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. "To coordinate such a complex operation requires continuous planning and communication. No single species can maintain the necessary focus for the duration required." "How long are we talking about?" asked Dr. Ben Carter. "Minimum 12 hours, War Marshal Thekron replied. "Possibly 24 or more. The Devourers move quickly, but our response must be precise. One mistake and entire civilizations could fall." Jake looked around the room and saw the problem immediately. The alien representatives were already showing signs of fatigue, and they had been awake for less than an hour. Their usual sharp focus was blunted by being awakened suddenly, and he knew from his observations that their condition would only get worse as time passed. "We can do it," Lisa said simply. Every alien eye in the room turned to her. "You?" asked Geometric Prime Null 7 of the Quartzites. "Humans," Jake confirmed. "We can coordinate the operation. We can stay focused for as long as it takes." War Marshal Thekron's scarred face showed doubt. "With respect, humans, this requires understanding of galactic military doctrine, knowledge of 7 different fleet compositions, coordination of species who have been fighting together for centuries." "Then teach us," Lisa said. "Right now. We'll learn as we go." What followed was the most intense briefing in galactic history. For the next 2 hours, military experts from all 12 species downloaded everything they knew into the human team's minds. Jake absorbed fleet tactical doctrine from the Kroger. Ben learned communication protocols from the Xylorians. Pete studied the technical specifications of ships from 6 different civilizations. Dr. Amanda Phillips worked with the medical corps to understand the biological needs of different species during combat. Engineer Kelly Brooks learned how to coordinate supply lines across vast distances. Even Ambassador Lisa found herself studying ancient battle strategies from the Vorthak archives. By hour 3 of the crisis, the alien military commanders were visibly struggling. War Marshal Thekron kept losing track of fleet positions. The Xylorian coordinators were missing telepathic communications. The precise quartzite logistics officers were making calculation errors that could cost lives. "We need rest," Zephistol admitted, its crystal form dim with exhaustion. "But the Devourers will not wait." "Then don't rest," Jake said. "Go rest, we'll take over." "You cannot possibly," War Marshal Thekron began. "We can," Lisa interrupted, "and we will." What followed was 36 hours of the most complex military operation in galactic history, coordinated entirely by a handful of humans who refused to quit. Jake found himself commanding fleets he had never seen, directing battles across light years of space, making split-second decisions that affected the lives of billions. Ben became the communication hub, maintaining constant contact with 7 different battle zones while alien commanders cycled through mandatory rest periods. Every 4 hours, fresh alien experts would wake up, receive updates, offer advice, then collapse again from exhaustion. Pete coordinated the logistics nightmare of keeping 7 different fleets supplied with ammunition, fuel, and replacement parts. He worked directly with alien supply officers who could only stay functional for a few hours at a time, learning their systems on the fly and maintaining continuity when they had to rest. Amanda became the casualty coordinator, working with medical teams from different species to save lives across multiple worlds. She learned alien anatomy through trial and error, coordinating evacuation efforts while medical personnel cycled through rest shifts. Kelly kept the supply lines running, coordinating cargo ships and transport vessels across half the galaxy. She worked with alien logistics experts who marveled at her ability to track hundreds of shipments simultaneously, without losing focus. Lisa managed the political side, maintaining communication with planetary governments, keeping civilian authorities informed, and preventing panic while coordinating with military leaders who could only stay alert for a few hours at a stretch. Hour by hour, the humans took on more responsibility as their alien counterparts succumbed to consciousness fatigue. What started as human assistance became human leadership, then human dominance of the entire operation. By hour 20, Jake realized he was effectively commanding the entire Galactic Defense Force. Alien fleet commanders would wake up, receive his orders, execute them to the best of their ability, then return to rest while he continued coordinating the larger picture. Status report, Lisa called out during hour 31. Devourer fleet at Rigel is retreating, Ben announced. Centauri defense is holding. Vega system is clear. We're winning. Causalities? Amanda asked. Light. Much lighter than projected, Kelly reported. Continuous coordination allowed us to respond faster than the Devourers expected. By hour 36, it was over. The Devourer fleets were either destroyed or retreating. 7 star systems had been saved. Billions of lives had been preserved. And it had all been coordinated by a species that the galaxy had known about for less than a year. Elder Zithikar was among the first to wake after the crisis ended. It found Jake still at the command center, reviewing after-action reports while drinking what had to be his 20th cup of coffee. It is finished, the Elder asked. It's finished, Jake confirmed. Complete victory, minimal casualties. The Devourers won't be back anytime soon. All 4 of Zithkar's eyes focused on Jake with something that looked like awe. You have been awake and in command for 36 hours. How is this possible? Jake shrugged, too tired to be diplomatic. Someone had to do it. Everyone else needed to sleep. The Elder stared at him for a long moment. Then it did something Jake had never seen before. It knelt. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid, Zithkar said solemnly. You have shown us what it means to keep the eternal watch. As word of the human coordination spread throughout the station, Jake began to understand that something fundamental had changed. The aliens no longer looked at humans as junior members of the galactic community. They looked at them as guardians, as the ones who could be trusted to stay awake when everyone else had to sleep. It was a responsibility Jake was not sure humanity was ready for, but it was clear they had no choice. In a galaxy that needed rest, someone had to keep watch. And apparently, that someone was human. 3 days after the Devourer crisis ended, the full council convened for what Elder Zithkar called the recognition ceremony. Ambassador Lisa Kane and her team took their places in the council halls, but this time something was different. The ceremonial chambers that had always been offered to humans first now made perfect sense. The chamber was filled with representatives from all 12 species, plus observers from dozens of worlds that had been saved during the crisis. Captain Jake Morrison noticed that many of the aliens looked at the human delegation with something that had not been there before. A mixture of respect, gratitude, and perhaps a little fear. Elder Zithkar stood at the center of the chamber, its 4 eyes reflecting the crystal light as it spoke. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained peace through cooperation and shared burden. Each species contributes according to their abilities. The Vorthak provide harmony and healing. The Xylorians offer communication and telepathic networks. The Kroger Empire supplies military strength. The Elder paused, looking directly at the human delegation. But there has always been a limitation, a weakness in our civilization that we have learned to accept but never overcome. When crisis demands extended focus, when emergencies require continuous attention, when the galaxy needs someone to maintain the watch while others rest, we have been helpless. Prime Thoughtweaver Zephistal stood on the Xylorian platform, its crystalline form bright with emotion. During the recent crisis, we witnessed something that our species believed impossible. Humans coordinated 7 simultaneous military operations for 36 continuous hours without degradation of performance. They made decisions, maintained focus, and showed leadership when consciousness fatigue would have incapacitated any other species. War Marshal Thekron of the Kroger Empire, his battle-scarred face solemn, added his voice. I have commanded fleets for 40 years. I have seen the finest military minds in the galaxy, but I have never seen anything like the sustained excellence displayed by the human coordinators. They did not just stay awake. They remained sharp, creative, and effective hour after hour. Dr. Ben Carter whispered to Pete Rodriguez, "Are they about to offer us a job?" Pete grinned back. "I think they're about to offer us the whole galaxy." Geometric Prime Null 7 spoke for the quartzites, its precise mathematical voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Analysis of human performance during the crisis shows efficiency ratings that exceed theoretical maximums for sustained, cognitive operations. The probability calculations suggest that human consciousness operates under fundamentally different parameters than all known sapient species. Lisa Kane stood up, feeling the weight of history and responsibility settling on her shoulders. Elder Zithkar, distinguished delegates, we are honored by your recognition. But I want to be clear about something. We did not save those star systems alone. We worked with your military experts, your technological systems, your ships and personnel. We could not have succeeded without the knowledge and resources of every species in this chamber. True, Elder Zuthkar agreed. But you provided what we could not, the ability to maintain continuous coordination when the situation demanded it. You showed us what our civilization has been missing. The Elder moved to a central podium that Lisa had not noticed before. The Council has made a decision. From this day forward, humanity shall hold the position of eternal vigil within the Galactic Council. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means, said Zephistal, that when the galaxy sleeps, humans will stand guard. When crises arise that require extended coordination, humans will lead. When others must rest, humans will continue the work. War Marshal Thekaron stepped forward. It is not just an honor, it is a responsibility. The Eternal Vigil speaks for the Council during extended emergencies. They have authority to coordinate galactic resources when consciousness fatigue prevents normal decision-making. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. You're asking us to become the guardians of galactic civilization? We are not asking, Elder, Zithkar said gently. We are recognizing what you already are. The crisis showed us that humans are naturally suited for this role. Your people stayed calm under pressure, learned quickly, and maintained focus when others could not. These are not skills that can be taught or replicated. They are inherent to human consciousness. Dr. Amanda Phillips spoke up from the Observer section. What about our own development as a species? Our colonies, our exploration, our growth? Nothing changes that, Zephistal assured her. Humans will continue to develop as they choose. But when the galaxy faces threats that require extended vigilance, when coordination is needed beyond the limits of consciousness fatigue, humanity will be there. Engineer Kelly Brooks, who had coordinated supply lines during the crisis, raised her hand. What kind of resources are we talking about? Everything, War Marshal Thekron said simply. When acting as Eternal Vigil, human coordinators have access to all Council fleets, all technological resources, all intelligence networks. The survival of civilization may depend on quick decisions during extended crises. Pete Rodriguez whistled, softly. That's a lot of responsibility. Yes, Elder Zithkar agreed. But the alternative is what we have always faced. Civilizations that must sleep when their enemies do not. Crises that overwhelm our limited endurance. Emergencies that require more sustained attention than we can provide. Lisa looked at her team, seeing the weight of decision in their faces. Jake, the military commander who had coordinated galactic defense without flinching. Ben, the doctor who had maintained communication networks for 36 straight hours. Pete, the engineer who had kept supply lines running across half the galaxy. Kelly, who had managed logistics that would have broken alien minds. "We accept," Lisa said finally, "but with conditions." "Name them," Elder Zithkar said immediately. "First, this authority is only for genuine emergencies. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to protect it. Second, we maintain our independence as a species. And third, we train others to work with us. Maybe we can't teach aliens to stay awake for days, but we can teach them to work more effectively with humans who can." "Agreed," said Zephistal immediately. The other delegates nodded or made their species equivalent gestures of agreement. Elder Zithkar approached the human delegation, carrying something that looked like a crystal sculpture but seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "This is the beacon of vigil. It has waited in our archives for millennia, created by an ancient species that prophesied the coming of guardians who would not sleep. Today, it passes to humanity." Lisa took the crystal, feeling its warmth in her hands. "What does it do?" "It connects you to every council emergency network across the galaxy. When activated, it gives you instant communication with all military forces, all civilian authorities, all technological resources. It is the key to keeping the galaxy safe when others cannot." As the ceremony concluded, Jake found himself thinking about the future. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council as junior members hoping to learn and grow. Instead, they had become its guardians, trusted with the safety of billions of lives across thousands of worlds. "No pressure," Ben muttered as they walked back to their quarters. But Lisa found herself smiling. Throughout human history, someone had always been willing to stand watch while others slept. Soldiers guarding camps, doctors working night shifts, parents checking on children, lighthouse keepers guiding ships through dark waters. It was what humans did. They stayed awake when someone needed to. Now they would do it for the galaxy. 3 months later, the first human patrol ships began their routes through Council space. They were small, fast vessels, crewed by volunteers, who understood their mission. When the galaxy slept, they would be awake. When crises arose, they would respond. When others needed rest, they would continue the watch. The phrase spread quickly among spacers of all species. "The humans are awake, so we can sleep soundly." Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral of the Vigil Fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the stars wheel slowly past. Somewhere in those points of light were worlds where alien children slept peacefully, knowing that someone was watching over them in the dark. It was not the future humanity had expected when they first reached for the stars. But it was the future they had earned through the simple willingness to stay awake when others could not. In a galaxy that needed rest, humanity had found its purpose, to be the ones who never sleep.